Hello and welcome. This is Let's Talk About Myths, baby, and I am your host, Liv, who every time I just feel like a little bit weird opening the episodes. It's just a bizarre thing to do. Greet people I don't know are listening. But thank you for listening. I am back today with another reading episode. We are returning to the fall of Troy. And oh, is it getting dramatic, because Achilles' son has been brought to Troy to help from the island of Skyros, where he grew up, never having met Achilles, but definitely knows that Achilles was his father. Whew. And Diomedes and Odysseus went off in search of the boy and brought him back to Troy. Honestly, he was very happy to go. He seems very intent on proving himself to be the son of Achilles. And again, I don't know necessarily what comes from this source or what comes from elsewhere, but all I know is Neoptolemus is a super bad guy. So let's see. Let's see why that's the only thing I remember about him. And just to really hit the nail on the head, where we last left the son of Achilles, Neoptolemus, who is almost exclusively just referred to as the son of Achilles, we last left him attacking the Trojans, and I kind of had to leave off at an awkward spot because there wasn't an easy break, and so, well, you'll hear exactly how we're going to start off today. It's just continuing on from last reading episode. This is Quintus Smyrnaeus' The Fall of Troy, parts of Book 7 and 8, translated by A.S. Way. 2 sons he slew of Meges, rich in gold, scion of Demas, sons of high renown, cunning to hurl the dart, to drive the steed in war, and deftly cast the lance afar, born at one birth beside Sangarius' banks of Parabia, to him, Celtis one, and Eubius the other. But not long his boundless wealth enjoyed they, for the fates span them a thread of life exceeding brief. As on one day they saw the light, they died on one day by the same hand. To the heart of one Neoptolemus sped a javelin, one he smote down with a massy stone that crashed through his strong helmet, shattered all its ridge, and dashed his brains to earth. Around them fell foes many, a host untold. The war god's work waxed ever mightier till the eventide, till failed the light celestial. Then the host of brave Eurypylus from the ships drew back a little. They that held those leaguered towers had a short breathing space. The sons of Troy had respite from the deadly echoing strife, from that hard rampart battle. Verily all the Argives had beside their ships been slain, had not Achilles' strong son on that day withstood the host of foes and their great chief Eurypylus. Came to that young hero's side Phoenix the old, and marveling, gazed on one, the image of Pylades. Tides of joy and grief swept over him, grief for memories of that swift-footed father, joy for sight of such a son. He for sheer gladness wept, for never without tears the tribes of men live, no, not mid the transports of delight. He clasped him round as father clasps son, whom, after long and troublous wanderings, the gods bring home to gladden a father's heart. So kissed he Neoptolemus' head and breast, clasping him round, and cried in rapture of joy, "Hail, goodly son of that Achilles whom I nursed, a little one in my own arms with a glad heart. By heaven's high providence, like a strong sapling, waxed he in stature fast, and daily I rejoiced to see his form and prowess, my life's blessing, honoring him as though he were the son of my old age, for like a father did he honor me. I was indeed his father, he my son in spirit. You had deemed us of one blood who were in heart one, but of nobler mind was he by far, in form and strength a god. You are wholly like him, yes, I see, alive amid the Argives him whom sharp anguish shrouds me ever. I waste away in sorrowful age. Oh, that the grave had closed on me while he yet lived. How blessed to be by loving hands of kinsmen laid to rest. Ah, child, my sorrowing heart will never forget him. Chide me not for this my grief, but now help you, the Myrmidons and Greeks, in their sore strait. Wreak on the foe your wrath for your brave father. It shall be your renown to slay this war insatiate Telephus' son, for mightier are you, and you shall prove than he, as was your father than his wretched sire. Made answer golden-haired Achilles' son, ancient, our battle prowess, mighty fate, and the overmastering war god will decide. But as he spoke, he had fain on that same day forth of the gates had rushed in his father's arms, but night, which brings men release from toil, rose from the ocean veiled in sable pall. With honor as of mighty Achilles' self, him mid the ships the glad Greeks hailed, who had won courage from that his eager rush to war, with priceless gifts whereby his wealth increased. For some gave gold and silver, handmade, some brass without weight gave these, and iron those. Others in deep jars brought the ruddy wine. Yes, fleet-foot steeds they gave, and battle gear, and raiment woven fair by women's hands. Glowed Neoptolemus' heart for joy of these. A feast they made for him amidst the tents, and there extolled Achilles' godlike son with praise, as of the immortal heavenly ones. And joyful-voiced Agamemnon spoke to him. You verily are the brave-souled Aeacid's son, his very image you in stalwart might, in beauty, stature, courage, and in soul. My heart burns, seeing you. I trust your hands and spear shall smite those hosts of foes, shall smite the city of Priam, world-renowned. So like your father are you. Methinks I see himself beside the ships, as when his shout of wrath for dead Patroclus shook the ranks of Troy. But he is with the immortal ones, yet, bending from that heaven, sends you today to save the Argives on destruction's brink. And answered Achilles' battle-eager son, Would I might meet him living yet, O king, that so himself might see the son of his love, not shaming his great father's name. I trust so it shall be, if the gods grant me life. So spoke he in wisdom and in modesty, and all there marveled at the godlike man. But when with meat and wine their hearts were filled, then rose Achilles' battle-eager son, and from the feast passed forth unto the tent that was his father's. Much armor of heroes slain lay there, and here and there were captive maids arraying that tent, widowed of its lord, as though its king lived. When that son beheld those Trojan arms and handmaid thralls, he groaned, by passionate longing for his father seized. As when through dense oak groves and tangled glens comes to the shadowed cave a lion's whelp, whose grim father by the hunters has been slain, and looks all around that empty den, and sees heaps of bones of steeds and kine slain theretofore, and grieves for his father. Even so the heart of brave Pelides' son with grief was numbed. The handmaids marveling gazed, and fair Briseis' self, when she beheld Achilles' son, was now right glad at heart, and sorrowed now with memories of the dead. Her soul was wildered all, as though indeed there stood the aweless Aeacid living yet. Meanwhile, exultant Trojans camped aloof extolled Eurypylus, the fierce and strong, as erst they had praised Hector when he smote their foes, defending Troy and all her wealth. But when sweet sleep stole over mortal men, then sons of Troy and battle-biding Greeks, all slumber-heavy, slept unsentineled. That was Book 7. Now, Book 8. When from the far sea line, where is the cave of dawn, rose up the sun and scattered light over the earth, then did the eager sons of Troy and of Achaea arm themselves athirst for battle. These Achilles' son cheered on to face the Trojans awelessly, and those the giant strength of Telephus' seed kindled. He trusted to dash down the wall to earth and utterly destroy the ships with ravening fire and slay the Argive host. But his hope was as the morning breeze delusive. Hard beside him stood the Fates, laughing to scorn his vain imaginings. Then to the Myrmidons spoke Achilles' son, the aweless, to the fight enkindling them. Hear me, my henchmen, take you to your hearts the spirit of war, that we may heal the wounds of Argos, and be ruin to her foes. Let no man fear, for mighty prowess is the child of courage, but fear slays strength and spirit. Gird yourselves with strength for war, give foes no breathing space, that they may say that mid our ranks Achilles lives yet. Then clad he with his father's flashing arms his shoulders, then exulted Thetis' heart when from the sea she saw the mighty strength of her son's son. Then forth with eagle speed afront of that high wall he rushed, his ear drawn by the immortal horses of his father. As from the ocean verge upsprings the sun in glory, flashing fire far over earth, fire when beside his radiant chariot team races the red star Sirius, scatterer of woefulest diseases over men. So flashed upon the eyes of Ilium's host that battle-eager hero Achilles' son. Onward they whirled him, those immortal steeds, the which, when now he longed to chase the foe back from the ships, Automedon, who wont to rein them for his father, brought to him. With joy that pair bore battleward their lord, so like to Aeacus' son, their deathless hearts held him no worser than Achilles' self. Laughing for glee, the Argives gathered round the might resistless of Neoptolemus, eager for fight as wasps whose woodland bower the axe has shaken, who dart swarming forth furious to sting the woodman. Round their nest, long eddying, they torment all passers-by. So streamed they forth from galley and from wall, burning for fight, and that wide space was thronged, and all the plain far blazed with armor sheen, as shone from heaven's vault the sun thereon. As flees the cloud rack through the welkin wide, scourged onward by the north wind's Titan blasts, when winter tide and snow are hard at hand and darkness overpalls the firmament, so with their thronging squadrons was the earth covered before the ships. To heaven uprolled, dust hung on hovering wings, men's armor clashed, rattled 1,000 chariots, horses neighed on rushing to the fray. Each warrior's prowess kindled him with its trumpet call to war. As leap the long sea rollers, onward hurled by two winds terribly over the broad sea flood, roaring from viewless bournes, with whirlwind blasts crashing together, when a ruining storm maddens along the wide gulfs of the deep, and moans the sea queen with her anguished waves which sweep from every hand, up-towering like precipiced mountains, while the bitter squall, ceaselessly veering, shrieks across the sea. So clashed in strife those hosts from either hand with mad rage. Strife incarnate spurred them on, and their own prowess crashed together these like thunderclouds out-lightening, thrilling the air. With shattering trumpet challenge, when the blasts are locked in frenzied wrestle, with mad breath rending the clouds, when Zeus is wroth with men who labor with iniquity and flout his law, so grappled they, as spear with spear clashed, shield with shield, and man on man was hurled. And first Achilles' war impetuous son struck down stout Melanius and Alcidamas, sons of the warlord Alexinomus, who dwells in Caunus mountain cradled, nigh the clear lake shining at Tarbellus' feet, beneath snow-capped Imbrus. Menes, fleet-foot son of Cassandra, slew he, born to him by fair Creusa, where the lovely streams of Lindus meet the sea, beside the marches of battle-biding Carians, and the heights of Lycia renowned. He slew withal Morris, the spearman who from Phrygia came. Polybus and Hippomedon by his side he laid, this stabbed to the heart, that pierced between the shoulder and neck. Man after man he slew. Earth groaned beneath Trojan corpses. Rank on rank crumbled before him, even as parched brakes sink down before the blasts of ravening fire, when the north wind of latter summer blows. So ruining squadrons fell before his charge. Meanwhile Aeneas slew Aristolochus, crashing a great stone down on his head. It broke helmet and skull together and fled his life. Fleet-foot Eumaeus Diomedes slew. He dwelt in craggy Dardanus, where the bride bed is, whereon Anchises clasped the queen of love. Agamemnon smote down Stratus, unto Thrace returned he not from war, but died far off from his dear fatherland. And Meriones struck Clamus down, Pisenor's son, the friend of godlike Glaucus, and his comrade Leal, who by Lemurus' outfall dwelt. The folk honored him as their king, when reigned no more Glaucus, in battle slain, all who abode around Phoenice's towers, and by the crest of Massictus and Chimera's glen. So man slew man in fight, but more than all Eurypylus hurled doom on many a foe. First slew he battle-bider Eurytus, Menetius of the glancing taslet next, Elephanor's godlike comrades. Fell with these Harpalus, wise Odysseus' warrior friend, but in the fight afar that hero toiled, and might not aid his fallen henchman. Yet fierce Antiphus for that slain man was wroth, and hurled his spear against Eurypylus, yet touched him not. The strong shaft glanced aside, and pierced Milanion, battle-staunch, the son of Clytie, lovely-faced. Arelaus' bride who bore him where Caicus meets the sea. Wroth for his comrade slain, Eurypylus rushed upon Antiphus, but terror-winged he plunged amid his comrades, so the spear of the avenger slew him not, whose doom was one day wretchedly to be devoured by the man-slaying Cyclops. So it pleased stern fate, I hear not why. Elsewhither sped Eurypylus, and he rushed on, fell beneath his spear, a multitude untold, as tall trees smitten by the strength of steel in mountain forest, fill the dark ravines, heaped on the earth confusedly, so fell the Achaeans beneath Eurypylus' flying spears, till, hard uplifted, met him face to face Achilles' son. The long spears in their hands, they too swung up, each hot to smite his foe. But first Eurypylus cried the challenge cry, "Who are you? Whence have you come to brave me here? To Hades' merciless fate is bearing you, for in grim fight have none escaped my hands. But whoso, eager for the fray, has come here, and on all have I hurled anguished death. By Xanthus' streams have dogs devoured their flesh and gnawed their bones. Answer me, who are you? Who be the steeds that bear you exultant on?" Answered Achilles' battle-eager son, "Wherefore, when I am hurrying to the fray, do you, a foe, put question thus to me, as might a friend, touching my lineage, which many know? Achilles' son am I, son of the man whose long spear smote your father and made him flee. Yes, and the ruthless fates of death had seized him, but my father's self healed him upon the brink of woeful death. The steeds which bear me were my godlike fathers. These the west wind begot, the harpy bore. Over the barren sea their feet can race, skimming its crest. In speed they match the winds. Since then you know the lineage of my steeds and mine. Now put you to the test the might of my strong spear, born on steep Pelion's crest, who have left his father's stock and forest there." He spoke, and from the chariot sprang to earth that glorious man. He swung the long spear up, but in his brawny hand his foe has seized a monstrous stone. Full at the golden shield of Neoptolemus he sped its flight, but nowhere staggered by its whirlwind rushed. He, like a giant mountain foreland, stood, which all the banded fury of river floods cannot stir, rooted in the eternal hills. So stood unshaken still Achilles' son. Yet not for this Eurypylus' dauntless might shrank from Achilles' son invincible, on-spurred by his own hardihood and by fate. Their hearts like cauldrons seethed over fires of wrath. Their glancing armor flashed about their limbs. Like terrible lions each on other rushed, which fight amid the mountains, famine stung, writhing and leaping in the strain of strife for a slain ox or stag, while all the glens ring with their conflict. So they grappled, so clashed they in pitiless strife. On either hand, long lines of warriors, Greek and Trojan, toiled in combat. Round them roared up flames of war. Like mighty rushing winds, they hurled together with eager spears, for blood of life athirst. Hard by them stood Enyo, spurred them on ceaselessly. Never paused they from the strife. Now hewed they each the other's shield, and now thrust at the greaves, now at the crested helms. Reckless of wounds, in that grim toil pressed on those aweless heroes. Strife incarnate watched and gloated over them. Ran the sweat in streams from either. Straining hard they stood their ground, for both were of the seed of blessed ones. From heaven, with hearts at variance, gods looked down, for some gave glory to Achilles' son, some to Eurypylus, the godlike. Still they fought on, giving ground no more than rock of granite mountains. rang from side to side spear-smitten shields. At last the Pelian lance, sped onward by a mighty thrust, had speared clear through Eurypylus' throat. Forth poured the blood, torrent-like, through the portal of the wound. The clanging arms he fell, like stately pine or silver fir uprooted by the fury of Boreas. Such space of earth Eurypylus' giant frame covered in falling. Rang again the floor and plain of Ilium. Grey death pallor swept over the corpse, and all the flush of life faded away. With a triumphant laugh shouted the mighty hero over him, "Eurypylus, you said you would destroy the Danaan ships and men, would slay us all wretchedly, but the gods would not fulfill your wish. For all your might invincible, my father's massy spear has now subdued you under me. That spear no man shall escape, though he be brass all through, who faces me." He spoke, and tore the long lance from the corpse, while shrank the Trojans back in dread at the sight of that strong-hearted man. Straightway he stripped the armor from the dead, for friends to bear fast to the ships Achaean, but himself to the swift chariot and the tireless steeds upsprang, and sped onward like a thunderbolt that lightning-girdled leaps through the wide air from Zeus's hands unconquerable, the bolt before whose downrush all the immortals quail, save only Zeus. It rushes down to earth, it rends trees and rugged mountain crags. So rushed he on the Trojans, flashing doom before their eyes. Dashed to the earth they fell before the charge of those immortal steeds. The earth was heaped with slain, was dyed with gore, and when in mountain glens the unnumbered leaves, down streaming thick and fast, hide all the ground, so hosts of Troy untold on earth were strewn by Neoptolemus and fierce-hearted Greeks, shed by whose hands the blood in torrents ran beneath feet of men and horses. Chariot rails were dashed with blood spray whirled up from the tires. Now had the Trojans fled within their gates as calves that flee a lion, or as swine flee from a storm. But murderous Ares came, unmarked of other gods, down from the heavens, eager to help the warrior sons of Troy. Red fire and flame, tumult and panic, fear, his car steeds bore him down into the fight, the coursers which to roaring Boreas grim-eyed Erinyes bear, coursers that breathed life-blasting flame, groaned all the shivering air, as battleward they sped. Swiftly he came to Troy, loud rang the earth beneath the feet of that wild team. Into the battle's heart, tossing his massy spear, he came. With a shout he cheered the Trojans on to face the foe. They heard, and marveled at that wondrous cry, not seeing the god's immortal form, nor steeds veiled in dense mist. But the wise prophet soul of Helenus knew the voice divine that leapt unto the Trojans' ears. They knew not whence, and with glad heart to the fleeing host he cried, "O cravens, wherefore fear Achilles' son, though never so brave? He is mortal, even as we. His strength is not as Ares' strength, who is come a very present help in our sore need." That was his shout far pealing, bidding us fight on against the Argives. Let your hearts be strong, O friends. Let courage fill your breasts. No mightier battle-helper can draw nigh to Troy than he, who is of more avail for war than Ares, when he aids men hard fighting. Lo, to our help he comes now, on to the fight. Cast to the winds your fears. They fled no more. They faced the Argive men as hounds that mid the copses fled at first, turned them about to face and fight the wolf, spurred by the chiding of their shepherd lord. So turned the sons of Troy again to war, casting away their fear. Man leapt on man, valiantly fighting. Loud their armor clashed, smitten with swords, with lances, and with darts. Spears plunged into men's flesh. Dread Ares drank his fill of blood. Struck down fell man on man, as Greek and Trojan fought. In level poise the battle balance hung. As when young men in hot haste prune a vineyard with the steel, and each keeps pace with each in rivalry, since all in strength and age be equal matched, so did the awful scales of battle hang in revel. So did the awful scales of battle hang level. All Trojan hearts beat high, and firm stood they in trust on aweless Ares' might, while the Greeks trusted in Achilles' son. Ever they slew and slew, stalked through the midst deadly Enyo, her shoulders and her hands blood splashed, while fearful sweat streamed from her limbs. Reveling in equal fight, she aided none, lest Thetis or the war god's wrath be stirred. Then Neoptolemus slew one far-renowned Paramedes, who had dwelt by Smyrnaeus' grove. Next, Kestrus died, Phalaris battle-staunch, Paralaus the strong, Menalcus, lord of spears, whom Iphianassa bare by the haunted afoot of Kylla to the cunning craftsman Medon. In the homeland afar the sire abode that never kissed his son's returning head, for that fair home and all his cunning works did far-off kinsmen wrangle over his grave. Deiphobus slew Lycon battle-staunch, the lance-head pierced him close above the groin, and round the long spear all his bowels gushed out. Aeneas smote down Demas, who erewhile in Aulis dwelt, and followed unto Troy Arcesilaus, and saw never more the dear homeland. Euryalus hurled a dart, and through Astrius' breast the death-winged point flew, shearing through the breathways of man's life, and all that lay within was drenched with blood. And hard thereby great-souled Agenor slew Hippomenes, hero Teucer's comrade staunch, with one swift thrust between shoulder and neck. His soul rushed forth in blood, death's night swept over him. Grief for his comrade slain on Teucer fell. He strained his bow, a swift-winged shaft he sped, but smote him not, for slightly Agenor swerved. Yet nigh him Diophantes stood, the shaft into his left eye plunged, passed through the ball and out through his right ear, because the fates, whither they willed, thrust on the bitter barbs. Even as in agony he leapt full height, yet once again the archer's arrow hissed. It pierced his throat, through the neck sinews cleft unswerving, and his hard doom came on him. So man to man dealt death, and joyed the fates and doom, and fell strife in her maddened glee shouted aloud, and Ares terribly shouted in answer, and with courage thrilled the Trojans, and with panic fear the Greeks, and shook their reeling squadrons. But one man he scared not, even Achilles' son. He abode and fought undaunted, slaying foes on foes. As when a young lad sweeps his hand around flies swarming over milk, and nigh the bowl here, there they lie struck dead by that light touch, and gleefully the child still plies the work, So stern Achilles' glorious scion joyed over the slain, and recked not the god who spurred the Trojans on. Man after man tasted his vengeance on their charging host, even as a giant mountain peak withstands onrushing hurricane blasts, so he abode unquailing. Ares at his eager mood grew wroth, and would have cast his veil of cloud away, and met him face to face in fight. But now Athena from Olympus swooped to forest-mantled Ida. Quaked the earth and Xanthus' murmuring streams, so mightily she shook them, terror-stricken were the souls of all the nymphs, adread for Priam's town. From her immortal armor flashed around the hovering lightnings. Fearful serpents breathed fire from her shield invincible. The crest of her great helm swept the clouds. And now she was at point too close in sudden fight with Ares. But the mighty will of Zeus daunted them both, from high heaven thundering his terrors. Ares drew back from the war, for manifest to him was Zeus's wrath. To wintry Thrace he passed, his haughty heart reeked no more of the Trojans. In the plain of Troy no more stayed Pallas, she was gone to hallowed Athens. But the armies still strove in the deadly fray, and fainted now the Trojans' prowess. But all battle fain the Argives pressed on these as they gave round. As winds chase ships that fly with straining sails on to the outsea, as on forest brakes leaps the fury of flame, as swift hounds drive deer through the mountains, eager for the prey, so did the Argives chase them. Achilles' son still cheered them on, still slew with that great spear whomso he overtook. On they fled, till into safety gated Troy they poured. Then had the Argives a short breathing space from war, when they had penned the hosts of Troy in Priam's burge, as shepherds pen up lambs upon a lonely steading. And as when after hard strain a breathing space is given to oxen that, quick panting beneath the yoke up a steep hill have dragged a load, so breathed a while the Achaeans after toil in arms. Then once more hot for the fray did they beset the city towers. But now with gates fast barred the Trojans from the walls withstood the assault, as when within their steading shepherd folk abide the lowering tempest, when a day of storm has dawned with fury of lightnings, rain, and heavy drifting snow, and dare not haste forth to the pasture, howsoever fain, till the great storm abate, and rivers wide with rushing floods again be passable. So, trembling on their walls, they abode the rage of foes against their ramparts, surging fast. And as when daws or starlings drop in clouds down on an orchard close, full fain to feast upon its pleasant fruits, and take no heed of men that shout to scare them thence away, until the reckless hunger be appeased that makes them bold, so poured round Priam's burge the furious Danaans. Against the gates they hurled themselves, they strove to batter down the mighty-souled earth-shaker's work divine. Yet did the Trojans not, despite their fear, flinch from the fight. They manned their towers, they toiled unresting. Ever from the fair-built walls leapt arrows, stones, and fleet-winged javelins down amidst the thronging foes, for Phoebus thrilled their souls with steadfast hardihood. Fain was he to save them still, though Hector was no more. Then Meriones shot forth a deadly shaft, and smote Philodamas, Polites' friend, beneath the jaw. The arrow pierced his throat. Down fell he like a vulture from a rock by fowler's barbed arrow, shot and slain. So from the high tower swiftly down he fell. His life fled, clanged his armor over the corpse. With laughter of triumph, stalwart Molus' son a second arrow sped, with strong desire to smite Polites, ill-starred Priam's son. But with a swift side swerve did he escape the death, nor did the arrow touch his flesh. As when a shipman, as his bark flies on over sea gulfs, spies amid the rushing tide a rock, and so to escape it swiftly puts the helm about and turns aside the ship even as he lists, that a little strength averts a great disaster. So did he foresee and shun the deadly shaft of doom. Ever they fought on, walls, towers, battlements were blood besprent, wherever Trojans fell, slain by the arrows of the stalwart Greeks. Yet these escaped not scatheless, many of them dyed the earth red. Aye, waxed the havoc of death as friends and foes were stricken. Over the strife shouted for glee Enyo, sister of war. Now had the Argives burst the gates, had breached the walls of Troy, for boundless was their might. But Ganymedes saw from heaven, and cried, anguished with fear for his own fatherland, O Father Zeus, if of your seed I am, if at your best I left far famous Troy for immortality with deathless gods, oh, hear me now, whose soul is anguish thrilled. I cannot bear to see my father's town in flames, my kindred in disastrous strife perishing. Bitterer sorrow is there none. Oh, if your heart is fixed to do this thing, let me be far hence, lest shall my grief, if I behold it, not with these my eyes. That is the depth of horror and of shame, to see one's country wrecked by hands of foes. With groans and tears so pleaded Ganymede. Then Zeus himself with one vast pall of cloud veiled all the city of Priam, world-renowned, and all the murderous fight was drowned in mist. And like a vanished phantom was the wall in vapors, heavy hung no eye could pierce, and all around crashed thunders, lightnings flamed from heaven. The Danaans heard Zeus's clarion peal, awe-struck, and Neleus' son cried unto them, Far famous lords of Argives, all our strength palsied shall be, while Zeus protects thus our foes. A great tide of calamity on us is rolling. Haste we then to the ships, cease we a while from bitter toil of strife, lest the fire of his wrath consume us all. Submit we to his portents, needs must all obey him ever, who is mightier far than all strong gods, all weakling sons of men. On the presumptuous Titans once in wrath he poured down from heaven, then burned all earth beneath, and ocean's world in girdling flood boiled from its depths, yes, to its utmost bounds, far-flowing mighty rivers were dried up, perished all broods of life-sustaining earth, all fosterlings of the boundless sea, and all dwellers in rivers. Smoke and ashes veiled the air, earth fainted in fervent heat. Therefore this day I dread the might of Zeus. Now pass we to the ships, since for today he helps Troy. To us too shall he grant glory hereafter, for the dawn on men, though whiles it frown, anon shall smile. Not yet, but soon shall fate lead us to smite that town, if true it was that Calchas' prophecy spoke aforetime to the assembled Greeks, that in the 10th year Priam's burg should fall. Then left they that far famous town, and turned from war, in awe of Zeus's threatenings, hearkening to one with ancient wisdom wise. Yet they forgot not friends in battle slain, but bore them from the field and buried them. These the mist hid not, but the town alone, and its unscalable wall, around which fell Trojans and Argives many in battle slain. So came they to the ships, and put from them their battle gear, and strode into the waves of Hellespont, fair flowing, and washed away all stain of dust and sweat and clotted gore. The sun drove down his never-wearying steeds into the dark west. Night streamed over the earth, bidding men cease from toil. The Argives then acclaimed Achilles' valiant son with praise high as his father's. Mid triumphant mirth he feasted in kings' tents. No battle toil had wearied him, for Thetis from his limbs had charmed all ache of labor, making him as one whom labor had no power to tire. When his strong heart was satisfied with meat, he passed to his father's tent, and over him sleep's dews were poured. The Greeks slept in the plain before the ships, by ever-changing guards watched, for they dreaded lest the host of Troy or of her staunch allies should kindle flame upon the ships, and from them all cut off their home return. In Priam's burge the while, by gate and wall, men watched and slept in turn, adread to hear the Argives' onset shout. Oh, nerds, thank you as always for listening. That was all of book 8, so I've decided to end it. I'm sorry it's a little short. I'm sorry there were ads in something, or 2 sets of ads in something less than an hour. I realize I say it like I think that there's single ads. I know it's like a grouping. I just have to put little markers in, just trying to be transparent. I am sorry. I'm working on an ad-free option, by the way. This seems like a great time to mention it, because I really do get it. But I also know you can skip them, so please just, feel free to do that. Just means that I can keep this show going, because bills get paid. So thank you. I will be back next week with another reading of book 9, and we're getting to it. There's going to be a horse soon, which is why I didn't want to jump into the next book, because I'm just assuming that the Trojan horse is coming up next. The times. This translation, honestly though, sometimes it's hard to make sense of it. So I appreciate you all powering through. It's fun. I mean, I like that we get this ending of the Trojan War from an original source, and it's just, we gotta do what we gotta do. This is an interesting text. I don't even think there's many translations of it out there, let alone ones that I can legally read, but it's a very interesting text. It's not the Iliad. It's not even half as good as the Iliad, but at least it does feature like all of these moments that we just otherwise wouldn't have. I also am afraid to read The Sack of Troy into this microphone because of the world, and I have so much trouble reading it and not thinking of reality. But thank you all so much for listening. I am recording everything in advance right now because I have travel, so I don't know. There's so much to say, but it will just be out of date by the time this comes out, so I'm just gonna stop without trying to rant as much as I would like to, because on this day, the 26th of May, when I am recording this, everything is awful again. Well, still. Anyway, I don't actually think I can go days without talking about what's happening in Gaza because it's just fucking awful. But that's it for today. I promise. You can hear my voice going, let's talk about Myth's Debut. It was written and produced by me, Liv Albert. Not this. Let's not pretend I wrote this. I did not. Michaela Smith is the Hermes to my Olympians. My assistant producer, Laura Smith, is the production assistant and audio engineer. The podcast is part of the iHeart Podcast Network. Select music in this episode was by Luke Chaos, and listen on Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm not talking about my Patreon right now because I would like you to give your money to these poor people who are just desperately want to live when the entire world seems to want them dead. And by the entire world, I mean the imperialist West. That's it. Give money to Gaza instead. I am Liv, and I do love this shit.